Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's going on, man?
Not much, brother. What's up, everybody? I'm excited to be here for another episode, like always, to keep the momentum going. But enough about us, guys. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off by welcoming our special guest, Aida Mandić, to the show. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We're great. Yeah. Thanks, Aida. It's an honor to have you on the show today. But before we get into everything, we've got a few questions for you. But before we get into that, can you just introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Aida. I'm an entrepreneur, specifically internet entrepreneur, author, poet, songwriter, inventor, activist, social media, marketing consultant. I do a lot of different things. I'm aware of many hats, but I was fortunate enough to receive $150,000 in scholarships and merit-based grants when I was a student. And
Very cool.
And then I also received several full-ride scholarship offers totaling over $1 million. Because they were full rides. So obviously, yeah. And I started researching scholarships when I was 13 years old because I'm an only child. And I come from a low income, former refugee and immigrant, background, and had nobody to help me whatsoever. I had to look up a lot of information myself, and so I started, I realized I didn't want to burden my family with student loan debt, because I thought it was just like amazing that my parents managed to survive a war, let alone anything else. So, I started doing that at a young age. And because I said, for starters, I want to go to college. And then who's going to pay for this? And then how am I going to pay for this? Right. So, and then I started to look at different sites and make a list of pros and cons of what they do and do not have to offer. And, I would, time them, and just to see how long it would take for a page to load and try to analyze the website traffic. Especially, for certain pages where I thought there would be more people interested in viewing that page. And then I would look at the code markup. I learned HTML, CSS, Java, H10. I just wanted to have marketable skills pretty early on. So I was a very serious, very ambitious kid, kind of conditioned to be that way. And I did all of that. And then I made a lot of tutoring programs. I made the Bosnian Youth Tutoring program when I was 13, and then the Detroit Youth for Anti-Bullying program when I was 13 years old as well. And I was involved in the American Cancer Society, American Red Cross. I helped just a lot of. I helped a lot with fundraising efforts for different organizations. That gave me a lot of leadership skills, and it definitely opened my eyes to what's needed in ed tech for sure. I don't think it's something that we pay enough attention to, particularly in the United States. In China, they have quite a bit of people that are interested in education technology, but it's not so popular here. I think that's going to change. Sure. Even TechCrunch, they published a few articles talking about ed tech specifically in the US. And I think 2020 and later on, I think it's going to be more popular, even prevalent here. But to give you more information about my site, these are things that led to the formation of the site. So that's why I am able to provide those products and services because of that background. That's why I mentioned that. But anyways, Searchkey is an education technology platform and database. We offer over $500 million in funds information ranging from scholarships and awards to fellowships and grants. We have over 50 categories, hackathons, cups, bowls, competitions, you name it, we got it. It's a one-stop shop. We offer revolutionary templates where, you can save your information for a lifetime, present information to prospective nonprofit organizations, for internships, just whatever it is. Like for college admissions, we really help students navigate the college admissions process effectively. Because a really big deal is, for example, let's say you're filling out, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe you're filling out 1,000 scholarship applications and your laptop's going to crash because you have a ton of different documents on it. And they have similarities, but they tend to ask different questions. And so the thing is, on average, you waste about 5,000 years of your life filling out the same information over and over again. Sometimes you have the option of copying and pasting it, but sometimes you don't, especially, given like what kind of laptop you have, what technology you have access to, how tech savvy you are, and how much help you get from anybody, because most students, they don't actually get help from anybody. So, given all of that, I just realized it's a very time consuming and extraordinarily inefficient process. And that was something like, as an entrepreneur, I think if you get annoyed by the way something is done, if you, don't think it's the best way to do it, that's when you're going to be passionate about it. If you don't have that like pain point, you're not really going to get passionate about it. So, that's what happened to me. And then I was like, okay, let's see what we can do to change the system, and this approach. So, and I interviewed a lot of people. Like I would ask them, what do you need in particular from a site? What kind of design, what kind of color, what feedback would be good for you to be more involved in it? What kind of guidance would you need? I did a lot of work. I was a full-time student. I had like straight A's, and everything, valedictorian. And then at the same time I was doing this, and at the same time I was doing internships. So I got a lot of experience. And I definitely have a very, very good idea of what students need, and what's out there. So it's,
from a practicality standpoint, you've got that background. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. And all I can say from that whole thing everything you just said was wow, right? I mean, you have a lot going on. But with all that said, Aida, I mean, as an entrepreneur, an author, a poet, and songwriter, I mean, I know you touched on it a little bit briefly, talking about, becoming an entrepreneur or looking things up when you were 13. Can you take us back to where your actual journey started and what it is about, what it is about specifically about entrepreneurship that you're actually passionate about?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my journey was definitely rough, and that's putting it lightly. So I was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's just geographically, for anybody who's listening, it's right across from Italy. It's in Europe, but anyways, there was a genocide there in the 1990s, and the 90s were a bad time. There were multiple genocides going on throughout the world, and Bosnia was one of the countries, unfortunately, that went through a massive genocide. It was actually the worst genocide since World War II, and a lot of people were murdered, a lot of Bosnians. And I was born at the end of 1990, and the war broke out in April of 1992. And my parents had to suffer quite a bit. My father was shot by a sniper in his ankle. He survived, but
Wow.
my parents were separated for a period of time because he basically set up a convoy for us to leave the country because had that not been the case, we would have died. Just, that's it. And he was a mechanical engineer. My mom was a civil lawyer. My parents are, very determined people, first in their family to graduate from college. So I kind of have that as a background too. I've noticed like most entrepreneurs, they tend to have parents that are like, leaders in some way, pioneers or like trailblazers in something. You got to kind of have that fuel. So I do come from a background like that. But anyways, I ended up living in Croatia. And then I lived in a refugee camp in the Czech Republic. And then I lived in Paris, France. And then I lived in Malaysia for 4 years, and then I came to the United States. And it was intense. Like, I'm not going to, downplay that. It was very intense. And I met a lot of different kinds of people. I spoke 5 languages by the age of 5, not because, I wanted to, but because it was a matter of survival.
You had to, sure.
So yeah, Bosnian, English, Malay, Czech, and French. I spoke by the age of 5 because you're adjusting to different circumstances. You can't just like, be asocial. Like, you got to talk to people because you got to be able to, go to a grocery store. You have to be able to speak the language. If you go to a park, you talk to kids, like, like what language are you going to speak to them in? So, and I got exposed to different food, different music, different clothing, different lifestyles, different kinds of people. And another thing I want to mention is when I lived in Paris, I lived in the 16th arrondissement. Because Paris is broken up into different arrondissements. Then that's basically like quarters. Mm-hmm. And that's basically one of the wealthiest quarters in Paris. And the reason I ended up there was because when I was in the refugee camp in the Czech Republic with I have pictures from all these places, by the way. But anyways, when I was in the refugee camp with my mom, my aunt was there, and she contacted one of her good friends. He was a journalist whom she met during the 1984 Winter Olympics in Sarajevo. Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So she contacted her friend, and she said, basically, here's how it's going down. So if you don't help us get out of this camp, we're all going to die, because in terms of refugee camps, something most people don't know is it's legal for you to die. It's illegal for you to live. And what I mean by that is, if somebody tries to get you out of the camp so they save your life, that's illegal. But it's illegal for you to be shipped back to your country that you were fleeing from and, just die. So she managed to contact him, and he did things that were ethically right, legally wrong. And he got us into Paris, and we stayed there. And so, like, there's this, like, extremity, because you see people walking with their poodles, and, like, their poodles have, like, diamond collars and feeding them, like, fancy foods. And then people over here are just, like, getting massacred, like, not too far away, because you know how Europe is. It's like a neighborhood, Right. And so I was given a lot of different perspectives, and I was able to meet a lot of different people. And I think that influenced later on in life my communication skills, like public speaking skills, networking skills, because you can literally blindfold me, throw me out in the middle of nowhere, and like I'll find a way to get out of it. So I think it's as an entrepreneur, that's an essential skill, because you have to be able to think quickly on your feet, and you can't get scared if things aren't going the way you want them to go. You have to be very, very tough, and be able to identify needs and trends. And you have to be able to communicate effectively in a way that is necessary for, the sustainability of your company, your culture. And like, even like when you're hiring people, you have to be a good judge of character. And in order to do that, you have to know people. Yeah, that means you have to meet a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not a simple process. And so I think I learned that very early on in life. And it was like, in a way, it was beneficial. So
Sure.
yeah, I definitely credit my background for that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's a lot of perspective very quickly, right? So, I mean, you really having that
grow up fast.
Yeah, exactly. Having that instinct to survive and having that instinct to be able to create something out of nothing wherever you are and learn a language just to be able to communicate with people, to live. That helps a lot with entrepreneurship. So yeah, I can imagine how that would really segue well into, really helping you, because part of entrepreneurship in a way is it, not to be dramatic about it, because it's definitely not, but you're surviving on a day-to-day basis with your business, and nobody's got any better interest for your business than you do. So you always have to.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can imagine that being a really, really good way. I mean, not a good way, but I can imagine that really building a strong foundation for your entrepreneurial journey really early on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was interested in business at like a very young age. Like I would even go to a store and I would ask my mom as a little girl, like, most little girls, like I would hang out with, they'd be playing with their Barbies, and I wasn't interested in the Barbie itself. I'm like, why are people buying this? And like, right. At what price, like, is this being sold? Like I would notice things like that, but I wasn't trained like that. There was like a natural instinct towards that. I would just notice, where people would go towards in a store, and why would that be the case? And then I would think like Skittles. I would think this is very, not to diss Skittles, but I would think this is a very basic product, but like the people who made this are making a lot of money. It's like just colored candy, like very, very small, like there's nothing,
right.
It's not rocket science, but then it attracts people. And then I would just start to think like, why is that attracting people? I would look at the placement of products when I would enter a store. Like I would notice these things. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely cool. Interesting how that impacts you. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that eye for, looking at things and seeing it a little differently than a customer might, or they see it how a business owner would see it and how they're approaching it. They're wondering what's behind the scenes. Whereas most people are they look at a product and they either like it or they don't, and that's about the end of it. But that's really cool. Well, so Ida, you published a book, kind of switching gears a little bit here, but you published a book called Candid Aim, which is a collection of poems about accomplishing maybe not your wildest dreams, but kind of, right? What was the inspiration for that book?
Oh, well, I want to say actually it was poems and songs. So I write poems and songs. It's the style is different, but I wrote about living all across the world in different countries. I wrote about social justice issues. I wrote about self-respect, power, oppression. I wrote about being a pioneer in some way, thinking for yourself, not allowing, people to like bulldoze you into a certain way of thinking, to just be a critical thinker. So like before you agree to do something, why are you doing that? Is it out of fear? Are you really needing to fit in? Is it necessary? And like, what do you get out of that? And then, how to like make your mark on the world. Cause like for me, at least, that's one of my priorities. I like making my mark. I like being, like different in some way. that means something to me. So
yeah, I mean, no,
figuring out what's important to you, figuring out what your value system is.
Right, for sure. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have to, and embracing change and being different is very key. So Ida, you're also the founder and CEO of Searchkey, which you already mentioned, right? Which is the company that helps people find resources and information that are relevant to their academic goals. Can you take us and explain to us and our listeners how that entire process has been like and how the integration of the education platform side of things is coming along?
So it's a big problem. For example, there's about $46 billion in scholarships and grants awarded every year. And most people, they have no idea. No, they have no, that number means nothing. It's actually worthless. And the reason being is because it's out there. If you don't apply for it and you don't get it, it goes nowhere.
It's like a black hole.
And yeah, it's a black hole. There's trillions, like $1.5 trillion student loan debt crisis. It's been rising steadily since the 1970s. Nobody cares, honestly. There's just like, it's just been going up. 1.5 trillion. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is insane. And most students, they're intimidated too. That's the tragic part of all of it. Like they don't, I remember even my classmates, they're just like, oh, I can't get it. Like, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just like, I'm not good enough. I don't have the grades. Like there are better people out there. I've heard that line so many times. It's just sad. And like that's going to impact the playing field. I mean, that's one of the things that's going to impact it. Another thing is, for example, the amount of time wasted actually filling out applications. Another thing is the lack of attention that's given to students' needs. Where they really are stressed and they don't know how to deal with it. And for example, there are applications that you fill out on paper. I can't stand that, for example. Like I'm an environmentalist. I really, if I can, I try to do something where I don't waste trees. And that's just a ridiculous amount of applications. Like if you get rejected, it's just a waste of paper. It just gets thrown away.
That is crazy.
Just think about how much paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's to be so much easier. In 2020, we should be well beyond paper. But the fax machine still gets used, so figure that one out. But
yeah, for sure, yeah. And then and like another thing is, like I want to integrate blockchain into Searchkey. I just wanted to do research on like how what would be important for people to use in regards to blockchain. Like for example, data privacy and data encryption, because your social security number, it's needed on a lot of scholarship applications. People, I can totally understand. I'm the same way. There's no way I'd want to like put that up on a site and send it to somebody unless it was directly through a government, website. Like if you're doing your FAFSA, for example, or something like that, where like, you know for sure that they're not going to steal it. That's pretty much the only situation where I'd put my social security number. Otherwise, I just don't do it because, you've got plenty of people that are scammers. So we want to add that to the site. So that way, at least every time you add a piece of information, like within a blockchain, your block has to get verified. And there's a timestamp. So at least you have some sort of tangible proof. Right. And another thing is that I've noticed with scholarships, the scholarship sites aren't comprehensive at all. But that's just a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. They'll just put information and just deal with it. Like there's nobody to talk to. There's no guidance. Nothing personalized whatsoever. And you don't save anything. Like you just click on, a link, and then you get to the scholarship organization, and that's it. That's all you do. And when you fill out an application, unless you save every single application you fill out manually, unless you save them in a document, it's gone. That's it. You just click submit. Bye-bye. And because they've got the next batch and the next batch after that and the next batch and, a generation and 2 generations, and they just keep going and it just goes away. And it's a issue. And you don't want to have a laptop full of that stuff, because if you just think about it for a second, you're writing papers usually, right? As a student, you're writing papers, you have projects. Just think about how much junk that is on your laptop. And it's clutter. It's information overload. And this way you just make it systematic, where it's basically you have like all the common information like already filled out. And then you just add on whatever it is, like if there are particular questions. But even with that, if you have it saved one time, you can copy and paste certain segments of it. You cut down on time massively. Because here's the thing, like I'm talking about filling out applications. What about all the stuff you have to do to even win that money and, get that award? And just think about that. Yeah. Just think about, you have to play like a sport. Just think about the number of hours you're doing, like if it's tennis or football or soccer or whatever sport you're really good at. Just think about you got to deal with your coach. You got to deal with your teammates. You got to deal with, kids at school. Like, it's just insanity. And then you have to deal with, like, let's say student council or National Honor Society. And then you have to deal with, like, maybe you're volunteering. Then you have chores at home. Then you got to do your homework. You see what I mean? Like, the number of hours, and you got to go to sleep. You got to get dressed. You got to eat. There are basic things you have to do as a human being just to survive. So if you count the number of hours there are in a day, those hours go bye-bye very quickly. If you actually just think about all those things you do. And what if you're doing an internship and if you're doing any summer classes, because you want to be like, ahead of the game in some way. Yeah. What time do you have left, honestly?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just think about it. And if you have a job, let's all that stuff aside. What if also you're doing some sort of job?
Right. And I think I'd say most people who are applying for a student, applying for grants and scholarships they're doing it because they don't have enough cash. Their parents don't have enough cash, otherwise to pay for college. So they're probably all have jobs. I mean, that was my situation. I wish Searchkey was around when I was applying for grants and scholarships, because I got a few.
Same. Yeah.
But one problem was, I mean, you mentioned not being able to find scholarships. So if there's one platform like Searchkey that you can find all these scholarships and apply for them all in one place, I mean, that's amazing. Then the other thing that I really ran into was, and I just got so fatigued by this, I was applying for grants and scholarships through the summer. I'd already been accepted to college. I was all set, but literally the summer before I got there, I was like up until, I don't know, maybe even like up till July. I was going to school in August. I was still applying for stuff. And some of them were like, $250 or $500, which it's very helpful. Anything is helpful, but you have to apply for a hell of a lot of $500 scholarships to pay for college these days. You know what I mean? So it was, and then like you said, it was just like a black hole. But I mean, it would be so helpful to have something like Searchkey available for sure. And, that seems like, from what you've said, all the things that you've done, it seems like helping people is really a common thread in everything, and trying to bring out the best in people and help them get through their journey. Has that always been your motivation for your ventures?
Yeah, I can identify what people need. Like I can immediately sense if somebody's going through some sort of struggle. Like, you know, you can put on a brave face around me and you can smile and everything, but like I can see through people very quickly. And that's a skill I have because of the way I grew up. Like I know when you're faking it, in terms of, you know, like emotions. And so, yeah, and I can tell, for example, what somebody's good at fairly quickly. Like I can, I pay attention to people. Like I'm very perceptive and like I observe things. And so, and that helps with figuring out, okay, so this is what you're good at. And I think this is the way information should be presented to you because I think that's how you perceive things. And then this is what I think you need. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it. You cover all the bases. It's done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Yeah, it's pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like you're hyper vigilant at identifying the needs and wants, and like you said, you're able to analyze somebody's situation by either talking to them for a short, brief time and identifying it and helping them get exactly what they need, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
With that said, through your actual entrepreneurial journey and everything that you've encountered,
yes,
from the highs to the lows to the moving around as a kid, and then getting to where you are today, what has been the most difficult thing for you about this whole journey?
I definitely was not accepted by people. I always, my whole life, I felt like an outsider. Just changing from place to place, you know, moving around. I was always a new kid in town, and like it would annoy people, like, because I even wrote about that in one of my poems. It's a four-line poem, but I said, when you are new, people rail against you because they are afraid their power will fade. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just how it is. But I remember just going through those experiences, and yeah, it was painful. But then you stop taking things personally so much, because then you just like look at it from like an objective standpoint. And that helped me in entrepreneurship, because if you take things personally, you're going to be an emotional mess, like just to put it bluntly. And like in business, there's no mercy. You know, like if there's some company that offers better products and services than yours, nobody cares, because, you know, you're just like, oh, but I worked so hard and I put in so much effort and my team is so great. You just can't think like that. You're getting emotional. Yep. And that helped me to understand just human psychology, because you literally, like, if you go into a restaurant, you're not thinking about like, oh, these people work so hard and this and that. You go there, you look, like there's something you want when you go there. You have objectives about what you desire, and you look at the menu, and if you find it, you'll order it. And if you don't find what you're looking for, you're not going to order it and you're going to walk out. And another thing is, when you get the food, if it's not at the quality that you are expecting, you're not going to be satisfied. You might be nice and just, you know, like leave it alone and, you know, never come back there again. Or you know, might even write a terrible review about them. So those are just like facts I just know about, you know, human behavior, just like basic things you notice every day. But, and I learned that, and you got to toughen up. You just have to toughen up. Like, something that really helps me is, meditation and prayer, and just distancing yourself from a situation. If you're not satisfied with somebody or something, stepping away from it. And because the moment you allow any sort of like emotion to get like way into that, then you can't be as effective in finding a solution. And I really like creating solutions and solving problems. That's my thing. Like I'm passionate about that. But yeah, but I would say the toughest thing in my journey has definitely been just feeling kind of alone sometimes, misunderstood, just different. I would say that's the key word, just a little different. but then in one way it hurts you, but in another way, like it can be helpful. Like if you're like that in business where you're always different than people want you, you know? So
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. If you can make people like need you, then you're at the top of your game.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the rule in business.
And people are always looking for different businesses, you know, a different kind of a restaurant or a different solution to a problem or different approach. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it becomes something that is celebrated. But yeah, I like that. It's, you know, you definitely have to keep your emotions in check and out of it, and just, you know, be excited about the process, and, you know, and kind of toughen up. There's definitely an element of that for sure. Well, Ida, as we wrap up this episode, what's one piece of advice that you could give our listeners to help them on their entrepreneurial journey? I mean, or it could be multiple pieces of advice, but, you know, what's one like really important thing that you could share?
Find something you're really good at and try to be better than anybody else at it. But make it something that's unique to you, that represents you in some way. You know, share your truth in some way. About maybe it's the way you grew up. Maybe, you know, because like people come from all sorts of different backgrounds. Like I know that for a fact. So find something that is uniquely you, and then amplify that to the absolute maximum of your ability.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love
and that. And speak up, be brave. Like, I don't fall flat on your face. Who cares, honestly? Like, no, really, like, no, you know, like fail. Like, you know, if you want to pitch, you know, like if you're just starting off and you want to pitch in front of investors, and maybe you came up with an idea and you haven't fully fleshed it out, but you just want to hear like how the process goes. And everybody else is, you know, maybe standing up, like taking that microphone and presenting their idea, and you're just sitting there like, oh, I'm not ready yet. Like, I'm not sure. Just figure something out, whatever idea, and stand up and speak directly into the microphone and look everybody directly in the eyes, and like do the things you are absolutely terrified to do. And you gotta develop courage. Like it's a muscle, like literally, like when you're going to the gym, if you don't go for a while, your muscles, they just atrophy, you know? Yeah. Absolutely. And same thing goes for courage. You have to develop courage, and it's going to give you a sense of self. It's going to give you pride, dignity, self-respect, you know, self-esteem. Nobody can take that from you. Like if you really have that, nobody can take it from you. You can't buy that. Like if you don't have it, you don't have it. And I think that's really important because it helps sustain you, and you don't get lost. That's really big. You don't get lost in things, you know? So if you don't like the way something's going, cut it off and start something new. Don't fall into like a pit of, oh, I'm so sad, this didn't work out, yada, yada. Get off of your knees, like get up, move on, do something else, switch it up. Like, yeah, that's my attitude. Like if I try to do something for a while, it's not working, I leave it and I do something else. And I'm not interested in like, if you know, somebody says like, oh, I thought you were like this. That's a big hanger on. Like people are like, I thought you were like this. I thought you could do this. I thought you could do that. It's, you know, then that discourages you. Let it go. That's their opinion. Another day, somebody else is going to be like, oh my God, you're amazing. You're brilliant. You're this, you're that. You gotta just let it go. You gotta become like an expert at letting things go. Yeah. Cause that energy is, that's a big deal in terms of your energy. You learn to forgive yourself and other people very quickly, because if you hold on to energy like that, that's just going to drag you down. That's a really big deal in business, and you got to just keep trying things, because that's the true mark of an innovator. So I think those you have to. That requires emotional agility, because like people always talk about entrepreneurship like these people are brilliant and they're brave. You have to be emotionally intelligent, and you have to be very, very strong emotionally. You know. So that's a big deal.
Love that.
Let it go.
Yeah. Definitely. And Ida, it's just what you just said I know it will resonate with our listeners. And I think that's a great way to end the episode. And from the both of us, we want to thank you specifically for taking the time out of your day to join us and adding value to what we're trying to do on our podcast.
Yeah, anytime. I'm really glad to have spoken with both of you. Yeah, you guys are lovely. Yeah. That's great.
Thanks, Ida. Yeah, it was great to talk to you. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Ida is working on, check out searchkey.us. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or any other major podcast directory. You can also find us on all of the socials and on our website at thatentrepreneurlife.com.
With that said, we also want to quickly give a special shout out to our family and friends, like always, to include all of our listeners, our followers and subscribers. If you find value in our show, please consider making a small donation to show your support. Even just a few dollars helps us keep things moving along and helps add value to your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks for continuing to support what we do, guys. And as entrepreneurs, don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.